Once upon a time, in the reddish village of Wotutu, where the wind smelt of palm oil and roasted corn, lived a woman whose name made stomachs groan, not in joy, but in frustration. Her name was Mama Lum, but everyone, from the market women to the Okada riders, called her a Japanese handbrake. She was not just stingy, she was the queen of stinginess. If stinginess was an Olympic sport, she would carry gold every year. Her heart was tight like a jammed mortar, and her hands were like padlocks that had swallowed the key. Even the village goats knew better than to graze near her compound. Mama Lum had one son, a lively 10-year-old boy named Namba. His head was always full of dust from football, and his mouth full of stories. But not food, never food, unless he begged and cried. While his friends licked mangoes and nibbled puff-puff after school, Namba would hold his empty stomach and say, "If only my mama cooked like Auntie Meng." Mama Lum's kitchen, however, was like a mystery shrine. It always gave off the most tempting aromas, groundnut soup bubbling like a choir of blessings, jollof rice singing from the pot, eru swirling with crayfish and meat. But it was all for her. Anyone who dared knock while she cooked would meet a face tighter than a pastor's fasting belt. She would act as if they just asked for her blood. One old woman once joked, "Even if you greet Mama Lum near her kitchen, your stomach will start turning, not from hunger, but from insult." Birds flew over her compound but never landed. Ants avoided her sugar. Even flies grew tired of her stingy nature. Mama Lum's life was ruled by her pots, her food, and her refusal to share a single spoonful. And Wotutu watched, laughed, gossiped, and waited. One hot afternoon, when the sun was frying rooftops like puff-puff in deep oil, Auntie Meng came walking by Mama Lum's compound. Her nose caught a sweet, thick aroma, that kind of egusi soup that could make even a full stomach cry for space. She stopped by the window and shouted, "Oh Mama Lum, this your egusi they call my name oh. Hope say person fit join you small." From inside, Mama Lum's eyes twitched. She didn't answer right away. She tiptoed to the fire where the soup was boiling happily in the pot and hissed like a cat stepping on hot ash. "Namba, go and open the door and tell her I am still cooking." But she changed her mind. Auntie Meng was already close to the door. Mama Lum plastered a smile across her face like old Gary on a black pot. "Hey Auntie Meng, come inside small make we gist," she said sweetly, wrapping her arms around herself like a cold goat. She quickly bent over the pot and began pouring water into the soup, one cup, then another, and another. "Ssssch." The pot hissed. The egusi soup started changing color from rich golden yellow to something that looked like pap with measles. "Aha, why is the soup looking watery like this?" Namba asked. Mama Lum whispered, "Keep quiet there. You won't make person chop my food." They sat and talked for nearly an hour. Auntie Meng gossiped about the new teacher who came from Kamba and how the pastor's wife was caught eating meat alone at choir practice. But her eyes kept drifting toward the kitchen. "Or won't you serve me small soup?" she asked again with a sly smile. Mama Lum laughed and said, "It has only crayfish inside, you won't enjoy it." When Auntie Meng finally left, Mama Lum rushed back to the pot and opened it. She stared. The once thick, proud egusi had become yellow river soup that could baptize somebody. Namba looked at it and shook his head. "Mama, this thing looks like fufu water. Even our cat will not drink this." Mama Lum rolled her eyes and served herself a plate anyway. She muttered as she ate, "So long as the soup can pass my throat, it is food." It was a cool Saturday morning in Wotutu, and the village was alive with the sound of frying, sweeping, and cocks arguing with their own echoes. Uncle Kem, Mama Lum's loud but lovable neighbor, had just returned from the market. He had sold some bush mango and crayfish and bought himself a cold bottle of top beer. He passed by Mama Lum's compound whistling like a village parrot. Suddenly, his nose twitched. Something in the air smelled warm and sweet, the unmistakable scent of fresh bread toasting on a coal pot. He licked his lips and knocked on Mama Lum's wooden door. Mama Lum. My stomach is playing tam-tam. Help a brother with small bread, I beg. It is just one slice. Mama Lum opened the door slowly like she was revealing national secrets. Her face was straight like she just swallowed bitter leaf without water. Bread. For wetting. Are you going to the hospital? Uncle Nkem chuckled. Ahoy, no be say I get ulcer oh. Just say the bread smell rich road. Mama Lum folded her arms and shifted her wrapper. Uncle Nkem, no vex. Even Jesus that multiplied bread did not share it anyhow. This one I bought and it's imported from Bia. One slice is 500. Uncle Nkem laughed. No so. The bread gets visa. But Mama Lum had already turned and walked back into her kitchen. From the window, Ndamba peeped. His stomach was making small protests like a baby goat. He whispered, Mama, I am hungry. Mama Lum handed him half a slice of bread, the one she had already bitten from. She looked him dead in the eye and said, Eat it gently. Chew it like you are reading a Bible in slow motion. You hear me? Ndamba nodded, holding the bread like it was Holy Communion. Outside, Uncle Nkem was still shaking his head. This woman tight pass padlock wiki done lost. One day, food will show her pepper. And the wind carried his words into the village square like prophecy. Mama Lum placed the rest of the bread loaf back into its nylon wrap, tied it twice like it was gold, and slid it inside an empty rice sack under her bed. She muttered, People want to finish my house through begging. Not today. Later that afternoon, a group of young girls passed by her compound singing folk songs on their way back from church practice. One of them, little Esang, noticed smoke rising from Mama Lum's back kitchen and whispered, I think Mama Lum is roasting groundnuts. Her friend Akojo added, Let's just say hello. Maybe she'll give us some. They walked up to her compound gate and greeted politely. Good evening, Mama. Mama Lum, who had just flipped a tray of perfectly golden groundnuts, looked at them with a raised eyebrow. Good evening, she replied dryly, fanning the nuts so the smoke didn't blow in her face. Okoja stepped forward. Your groundnut smells very nice. Isan giggled, Yes, it smells like Christmas. Mama Lum forced a smile. That's good. But smelling is free. Groundnut is not. The girls looked at each other, unsure whether to laugh or leave. Isan tried again. Please, just a few to taste. Mama Lum turned sharply. Taste. This one is not for children who roam the village after sunset. Go home and eat what your mother cooked. She walked into her kitchen, leaving behind the silence of two disappointed girls. Isan whispered, She behaves like groundnut is diamond dust. Akojo added, Even our goat at home shares better than her. They walked off, humming a new song they made up on the spot. And just like that, our reputation as Japanese handbrake grew even stronger among the children of Wotutu. The following week, the village school announced a big exam. Children everywhere started cramming like parrots learning new proverbs. Namba, eager to impress his teacher and beat his best friend Kom, invited 3 of his classmates, Kom, Bait, and Tota, to come revise with him at home. Let's read together at my place, Namba said with excitement. We'll do past questions and maybe, if Mama is in a good mood, she'll give us snacks. They all cheered. Little did they know, they were walking into the house of hunger. When the boys arrived that Saturday morning, Mama Lum was sweeping the veranda. She looked up and saw the 3 visitors walking in with school bags. Good morning, Mama, they greeted politely. Mama Lum gave a tight smile. Good morning. You people are reading on a Saturday. That's good. Education is the key. The boys chuckled nervously. She allowed them to sit on the mat in the parlor, and Namba brought out his books. They opened their notebooks and began revising multiplication tables. Half an hour into studying, a delicious aroma drifted through the window, the sweet scent of hot jollof rice with smoked fish and ripe plantains frying in hot oil. It danced through the air and grabbed their attention like a hand on the neck. Combe raised his nose. Something is cooking. Tota's eyes widened. That smell is jollof rice. Bait swallowed. And I smell ripe plantains. Is that Titus fish? They turned to Namba, whose eyes were glued to his book, but his nose was clearly distracted. Suddenly, Mama Lum walked past the parlor with a large wooden spoon, whistling as she stirred the pot. She glanced at the boys. Reading well, eh? Yes, Mama, they all chorused. Good. Hunger must not distract you. They smiled, expecting the next words to be a come and eat. But instead, she entered her room and came out with the steaming pot. She walked past them into her bedroom, closed the door, and locked it. The boys stared at each other in shock. She locked the jollof. Combe whispered. She locked the food in the bedroom. Tota added. Even Bait, who was usually calm, muttered, "This is spiritual warfare." To make things worse, Mama Lum returned 10 minutes later with a jug of warm water and said, "In case you're thirsty." No cups. No food. Just plain warm water and tension. After 2 hours of study, the boys couldn't focus. The aroma was still floating around the house like an insult. Combe finally stood up and said, "Namba, I think it's time we go and finish the reading at my place." The others agreed and packed their books. As they left, Mama Lum said, "Tell your mothers I said good luck in the exams." Once they were out of earshot, Tota said, "I've never studied while being roasted alive by jollof smell." They all laughed, but Namba walked behind quietly, embarrassed. It was a blazing Thursday afternoon in Wotutu. The sun scorched rooftops, the lizards moved like they were walking on hot pepper, and even the birds had gone silent. Inside her kitchen, Mama Lum stood by her 3-stone fire, beads of sweat rolling down her face like palm oil. She was turning a big pot of fufu, her favorite. The thick white dough rolled around in the pot, stretching and bouncing as she stirred with all her strength. Her arms ached, but the joy of knowing she would enjoy the fufu alone gave her new energy. Suddenly, knock knock knock. The pounding on the front door nearly made her drop the turning stick. "Who is that one again?" she muttered, grabbing the edge of her wrapper. She peeped through the window and her heart sank like a stone in river water. It was Chief Ayamba's wife, a respected woman known across the village. Her visits were rare and important. Mama Lum panicked. She looked at the bubbling pot of hot fufu. There was no time to hide it properly. In a split second, she switched off the fire, grabbed the steaming pot with a rag, and dragged it into the sitting room. Her eyes scanned the space, and landed on the broken wooden chair in the corner. She shoved the pot underneath, threw a thick wrapper over the chair, and stood up straight, pretending like nothing happened. She wiped her face quickly and opened the door. "Oh, Mama Chief. What a pleasant surprise. You look like fresh corn just harvested." Chief Ayamba's wife smiled warmly. "I was passing by and thought to greet you. I hear your son is doing well in school." "Oh yes. Namba is trying small, Mama Lum said, guiding her guest inside. They sat in the parlor. The air was thick with the hidden steam of hot fufu creeping from beneath the wrap chair. Mama Lum sat on the edge of another chair, praying her visitor wouldn't sit on the wrong one. They chatted about village meetings, school matters, and a coming festival. Mama Lum laughed too loud, nodded too fast, and kept throwing her eyes toward the broken chair like a chicken guarding its eggs. Suddenly, the front door burst open. Mama! I just scored 2 goals. Combe said I should come and play again. Namba shouted as he ran in, still full of excitement. Before anyone could say a word, he dashed straight toward the empty chair. Namba, no. Mama Lum cried. But it was too late. Namba sat down with full force. Crushed. The chair leg snapped. The chair gave way. And Namba fell straight into the steaming pot of fufu hidden beneath. Why, he screamed as the hot dough swallowed his thighs and backside. Mama Chief's wife jumped up in shock. My God! What is this? What kind of madness is this? Mama Lum screamed too, rushing to lift him from the sticky mess, but it was too late. His skin had already turned red with burns, the fufu clinging like glue. Neighbors rushed in at the sound of his cry. What they saw made their hearts break. You kept hot fufu under a chair, someone shouted. What kind of woman hides food under furniture? Another cried. Mama Lum couldn't speak. Her voice failed her. She carried her son in her arms, tears pouring down her cheeks, as they rushed him to the village health center. Behind them, the broken chair lay sideways, the wrapper crumpled, and the half-eaten pot of fufu sitting like a guilty spirit in the middle of the floor. The news of Namba's accident spread through Wotutu like wild bushfire during dry season. By evening, the entire village was talking. At the health center, the nurses walked quickly, unwrapping the fufu-soaked cloth from Namba's legs. His skin had turned red and raw. He wailed with pain as cool herbs were rubbed gently on the burns. Even the strongest man among the health workers had to blink back tears. "Ahoy," one nurse whispered, "what kind of mother keeps hot food under a broken chair?" Another shook her head, she could have killed him. All because of stinginess. Outside, the health center compound was filled with whispering villagers. Not true. She hid pot of fufu under chair. Yes, oh. And the chair break, that is how the boy fell inside. Japanese handbrake has finally jammed a wall. By sunset, a crowd had gathered in front of Mama Lum's house. But this time, not for greetings or gossip. Their faces were long. Their voices serious. Chief Ayamba himself came with his councilmen and stood at her compound gate. Mama Lum, her wrapper half-tied and face swollen from crying, stepped out slowly. The chief's voice was firm. Mama Lum, what you have done is not only shameful. It is dangerous. Your son could have died because you could not stand the idea of someone seeing your food. The villagers murmured in agreement. A market woman added, if she can hide fufu under a chair, maybe tomorrow she will hide pepper soup in the toilet. A man shouted, if she doesn't want people to eat, she should live alone in the forest. Mama Lum dropped to her knees, shaking. Please. I didn't mean for it to happen. I panicked. I was scared she would ask for food. Then let her ask. Is food now a crime? Chief Ayamba roared. Are you the only one who buys gari in this village? The crowd erupted. Mama Lum, enough is enough. From that day forward, the people of Wotutu rejected her. Children pointed at her in the street and whispered. The market women refused to sell to her. Some even turned their backs when she came close. If she tried to buy tomatoes, the seller would say, these ones are for sharing people. Not for hoarders. If she passed a group of women, one of them would hum a mocking song. Even Uncle Kem, once her friend, said, if she greets me, I go pretend say I know her. Until she learns how to open her pot, her mouth should stay closed. And so, Mama Lum walked the village roads alone, dragging her slippers slowly, her head hanging low. Her eyes were red. Her heart was heavy. But the biggest pain of all? Her son lay in the clinic bed, not able to walk. And the echo of his scream still haunted her every night. The nights in Wotutu grew long for Mama Lum. She barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Namba's face twisted in pain, his skin blistered, his voice crying out, Mama. Hot. It's hot. At the health center, her son lay still on the bed, wrapped in layers of white cloth. The smell of burnt skin and herbal ointment filled the room. He had not stood up since the day he fell into the fufu. He barely spoke. His laughter, once loud like a cock at dawn, was now quiet like a dying wind. Every morning, Mama Lum sat beside him, fanning him slowly, wiping his face, whispering prayers through trembling lips. Ndamba, my son. I am sorry. Please get well. I will change. I swear on my mother's grave. Sometimes, the nurses brought food. Sometimes, villagers passed by the window just to peep. Some only came to confirm if the boy was still alive. But nobody brought greetings. Nobody brought comfort. Nobody trusted Japanese handbrake. One night, Ndamba stirred in his sleep. His eyes flickered. Then, in a weak, half-conscious voice, he muttered, "Hot fufu, Mama, didn't want to share. Why, Mama? Why?" Mama Lum burst into tears. She held his tiny hand, her chest rising and falling with sobs. Her tears soaked his fingers. "I was wrong," she whispered. "I thought hiding food would protect me. But I didn't know it would destroy what I loved." She spent the rest of the night on her knees in the corridor of the health center, whispering to the moon, "Ancestors, forgive me. Let my son live. I will change. I will cook and share, not hide and hoard. If I must carry people's food on my head and dance around the market, I will do it. Just let my child walk again." The next morning, she visited the village shrine elder, something she hadn't done in years. She brought kola nuts, bitter leaf, and a tiny wrapped cloth with the names of her ancestors. She knelt before the elder and confessed everything. The elder, an old man with a beard like dried maize tassels, listened carefully and said, "When you block your pot from others, you also block your blessings. Now your punishment has come home. The gods are not wicked, they only teach hard lessons to closed hearts." He poured libation, murmured incantations, and gave her instructions. "Every day until your son is well, you must cook food, carry it to the square, and feed strangers. That is the only sacrifice the gods accept from stingy hands." Mama Lum nodded, her tears flowing freely. "I will do it. I will feed the whole village if I must." And so began the first steps toward change. But the road was long, and the people of Wotutu still watched her with weary eyes. The next day, the people of Wotutu gathered at the village square for the weekly sanitation and meeting. As brooms swept red dust into little clouds, and women gossiped under mango trees, something unexpected happened. Mama Lum arrived, carrying a large tray of food. Gas echoed across the square like dry leaves crackling in fire. She placed the tray on a low wooden bench, a full basin of rice and beans, with fried plantains and crayfish stew glistening on top. A fresh jug of plum juice sat beside it. Children froze mid-play. Women nudged one another. Uncle Nkem squinted as if trying to see clearly. She cleared her throat. "Good morning, everyone. Please, this food is for the children and anyone who is hungry. Take. Eat." The silence was louder than a church bell. No one moved. Even the village goat walked past the basin like it had better places to be. Finally, a curious little boy named Orok stepped forward. He looked left, right, then picked a spoon. He tasted one bite. His eyes lit up. "Mama Lum, this rice is sweet like Celebration Day." And just like that, the line started forming. First the children. Then some shy market women. Even Tota and Bate, Ndamba's friends, came to eat. But the adults, they remained skeptical. Uncle Nkem folded his arms and whispered to Auntie Meng, "Mph. Is this real change, or is she bribing the ancestors?" That evening, she cooked again. This time, she took the food to the health center and gave it to the nurses. She said softly, "Thank you for caring for my son." The nurses nodded politely, but their eyes remained careful. Thank you, Mama Lum. He's healing slowly. Keep praying. Day after day, Mama Lum cooked yam porridge, egusi soup, cookie beans, grilled fish. She carried her food on her head like a trader and went from house to house, not to beg, but to give. Some slammed their doors and some accepted with tight lips. But the children forgot quickly. They laughed and sang again as they chewed her food and danced around her like chicks around a mother hen. One day, while serving food outside the church, she heard someone whisper, "Let's wait and see. People don't change overnight." She heard it. But she didn't react. She only served another plate. And each time she served, she prayed silently, "Let my son walk again. Let this pain turn into peace." But even with all her efforts, her nickname still lingered like old smoke. Some called her repentant handbrake. Others laughed, saying, "She dey cook now because fire burned her lesson." But Mama Lum didn't stop. She cooked. She shared. She changed. And in the health center, little by little, Namba began to smile again. Weeks passed. The rainy season rolled in, bringing cold mornings and soft, misty skies. But in Watutu, something else was changing, something warmer than sunshine. Mama Lum had become a woman no one recognized anymore. She was no longer hiding her pots or whispering when someone knocked. These days, she called out loudly, "Come and eat before I finish everything." Her compound that once smelled of secrets and locked food now smelled of pepper soup and open hearts. Smoke rose from her kitchen daily, and with it, the laughter of children and the smiles of neighbors she once chased away. She became known for her sharing, not her silence. When she went to the market, she bought extra salt, not to keep, but to give. When children passed by, she offered banana and coconut slices. At church, she brought warm puff-puff wrapped in leaves and told the ushers, "Distribute to the back benches too." The same women who once hissed and turned their backs now nodded and smiled. This one is new Mama Lum. The pot way stubborn dawn finally turned sweet. At a community festival, Chief Ayamba stood up and said, "In this village, we have seen the worst, and we have seen change. Mama Lum has proven that even a bitter cola can become sweet with enough soaking." The crowd clapped. Even Uncle Nkem raised his calabash of palm wine and shouted, "She's no longer Japanese handbrake, this one is Mama Lajes." Everyone laughed. Mama Lum, seated beside her son Namba, now walking slowly with the help of a cane, smiled with tears in her eyes. For the first time in years, she felt like part of the village again. Thanks for watching. Please, subscribe, like, share and comment the lesson you learned in the comment section below.